They say comparison is the thief of joy. But how could I not compare when my life seemed like a page torn from a glossy magazine? A husband who worshipped the ground I walked on. A charming little boy with an infectious laugh. A home that echoed with love and warmth. I had it all, or at least that's what I wanted to believe. Our mornings were filled with pancakes and messy kisses. Our nights with bedtime stories and whispered dreams. My husband, Drew, always made sure to remind me how lucky he was. "Lana, I hit the jackpot with you," he'd whisper against my neck, his breath warm, his embrace stronger than any doubt that dared creep in. But looking back now, those moments feel more like well-rehearsed scenes in a play, rather than genuine memories. I ignored the subtle cracks. The way Drew's eyes flicked to his phone during dinner, the business trips that became more frequent, the lingering cologne on his shirts that didn't smell like his usual brand. I chalked it up to stress, to work, to anything but what my gut tried to scream. I was a mother, a wife, a woman proud of the life she'd built. So I silenced that small voice inside me, the one that whispered late at night when Drew came home just a bit too late. I told myself I was just overthinking reading too much into harmless things, but I couldn't shake the feeling that my reality was slowly slipping into something darker. It wasn't until that Tuesday morning, as the rain tapped gently on the kitchen window, that the cracks shattered completely. I found something, not what I expected, not even close, but something that would change everything. My name is Lana Prescott, and what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about how the people closest to you can hide the deepest secrets. And once you find them, there's no going back. Tuesday morning had started like any other coffee brewing. Cartoons humming from the living room TV, and my son Ethan sprawled across the floor, building a Lego fortress. I stood at the kitchen counter, flipping through emails on my tablet, when Drew's phone buzzed on the table. He had forgotten it. Drew never forgot his phone. That device was like an extension of his body, always glued to his hand, tucked into his pocket or charging beside our bed. Seeing it there, vibrating innocently against the granite countertop, sent a ripple through my chest. I shouldn't have looked. I know that now. But something about the way it buzzed twice, then 3 times in rapid succession, made it feel urgent, important, dangerous. With shaking fingers, I picked it up. No passcode. That was odd. The messages were still on the lock screen. "Last night was amazing. I can still smell you on me." She has no idea, does she? "When are you telling her?" My breath hitched in my throat. I stared at the words, hoping they'd rearrange into something less devastating. My hands went cold, my heart pounding in my ears. My first instinct was denial. Maybe it was spam. Maybe a prank. Maybe some weird inside joke I didn't understand. But deep down, I knew better. I unlocked the phone. The messages were from someone named Tessa. I didn't recognize the name, but the way she wrote to Drew was intimate, familiar, cruel. I scrolled up. There were weeks of messages, photos, plans, hotel reservations. The puzzle pieces fell into place so easily it made me sick. While I was busy planning Ethan's birthday party, Drew was planning romantic weekends with Tessa. I dropped the phone onto the table like it had burned me. The room spun. Ethan looked up from his toys and gave me a curious look. "Mommy, you okay?" I blinked, forcing a smile onto my trembling lips. "Yeah, baby, I'm okay." But I wasn't. Nothing would ever be okay again. The hours after I read those messages passed in a strange, dream-like blur. I moved through the house like a ghost feeding Ethan, brushing his hair, pretending everything was fine while inside. My world crumbled every time I looked at his little face. I thought of the betrayal poisoning our family. Drew came home around 6 p.m., just like he always did. His tie loosened, smile easy, and a bouquet of lilies in his hand. I stared at him from across the kitchen, and for the first time in our marriage, I didn't recognize the man in front of me. "Hey, babe," he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. I didn't move. "I thought I'd surprise you with flowers. You've seemed off lately." "Have I?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. He nodded, stepping back slightly, searching my face. "Yeah, I figured you were just tired. Work's been a lot for both of us." I didn't respond. I just kept stirring the pasta I didn't plan to eat. Over dinner, Drew was his usual self, laughing with Ethan, talking about the new marketing pitch at work, telling us about the idiot who spilled coffee on the office printer. I watched him closely, memorizing his mannerisms. How could someone lie so easily, so thoroughly, with so much charm? After we put Ethan to bed, Drew reached for me. "You've been distant," he said softly. "Talk to me." My fingers clenched the edge of the kitchen counter. I could confront him now. I could demand answers, throw the evidence in his face, scream and cry and burn this house to the ground. But something inside me, something dark and sharp, told me to wait. Not yet. I turned to him and smiled. I'm just tired. Long day. He seemed to buy it. As he kissed me goodnight and disappeared into the bathroom, I stared at my reflection in the hallway mirror. My face looked calm, too calm, but behind my eyes I felt a storm building. I wouldn't let him see it. Not until I was ready. The next morning I woke up before Drew. I watched him sleep for a moment, his face peaceful, unaware of the wildfire burning behind my quiet eyes. I didn't hate him yet, but I could feel something close to hatred starting to form, taking root in the space where trust used to live. I kissed Ethan goodbye, dropped him off at preschool like always, and instead of going straight to work, I drove to the one place I knew. I'd be alone with my thoughts, the old marina near the edge of town. The wind off the water was cold and sharp. It helped me think. I sat in my car and opened the messages again. I read every word, every emoji, every photograph. It wasn't just flirtation. It was a full-blown emotional affair. He talked to her like she was his lifeline, shared his dreams, his fears, things he hadn't said to me in years. My heart didn't break. It hardened. I decided then, I wouldn't confront him. Not yet. First, I'd understand everything. I needed information, proof, strategy. So I called someone I hadn't spoken to in months, Tara, a former coworker of mine who had gone through a nasty divorce after hiring a private investigator. Tara, it's Alyssa. I need help. She didn't hesitate. I know a guy. He's discreet. Expensive, but worth it. Later that afternoon, I met with the investigator in a quiet cafe. His name was Cole, mid-40s. Serious eyes, no small talk. I handed him a flash drive with the screenshots, gave him Drew's schedule, his office address, and the name of the woman in the messages, Jenna Marshall. She works at the same firm, I said. They've been working late together. Cole nodded. Give me a week. I nodded back, barely breathing. A week felt like forever, but I had waited this long. I could wait a little more. That night I climbed into bed beside Drew and smiled when he turned off the light. He had no idea. And that was the beginning of the end. Every day that week, I played the role of the perfect wife. I cooked dinner, laughed at Drew's dull jokes, and even initiated a movie night. It was nauseating, but necessary. Meanwhile, Cole sent me daily updates. On Tuesday, he caught them having lunch together at a quiet cafe. Across town, too. Far for it to be a simple office break. On Wednesday, they left the office late, her hand brushing his as they walked to her car. By Thursday, I had what I needed. Photos of them kissing in the parking lot, his hands tangled in her hair, his body pressed against hers like she was his home. I stared at those pictures in stunned silence. It's one thing to imagine betrayal, it's another to see it. And yet I didn't cry, not even a single tear. I felt clean, like something inside me had snapped into place. There was no more denial, no more wondering. This was my reality now, and I would decide what came next. Friday morning, I called my lawyer. Yes, I'm ready to move forward, I said. But I want to do it my way. She hesitated. Alyssa, this will get messy, especially with a child involved. I don't care. I'll protect Ethan, but Drew? He's about to learn what real consequences feel like. We began drafting the papers' divorce with full custody, citing infidelity. But I held off on serving them, not yet. That evening, Drew walked through the door, smelling of aftershave and sin. He kissed my cheek and I smiled. I thought we could have a date night, I offered. Just the two of us. He blinked, surprised. Sure. That sounds great. I watched him squirm as I booked the restaurant. He was wondering if Jenna would be upset. Good. Let him panic. Over dinner, I studied him like a scientist examines a failed experiment. Every fake laugh, every glance at his phone, every hollow compliment, it all fueled the storm building inside me. By dessert, I leaned closer, my voice a whisper. Drew, I said sweetly. Do you believe people get what they deserve? He looked at me, confused. What? I smiled. Nothing, just a thought. He didn't know it yet, but the countdown had begun. Over the next few days, I became an actress worthy of an Oscar. I played the role of the devoted wife with the kind of precision that would have made Drew question his own suspicions if he had any. I prepared his favorite meals, left notes in his briefcase, even massaged his shoulders at night. Every gesture calculated, every smile rehearsed. But beneath it all, I was sculpting the stage for his downfall. Cole and I worked in tandem. He hacked into Drew's cloud storage legally, I might add, thanks to a shared family account we'd forgotten about years ago. What we found was gold. Dozens of messages between Drew and Jenna, stretching back months, photos, videos, voice notes. There was one video I couldn't unsee Drew in Jenna's apartment, shirtless, laughing like a teenager in love, a version of him I hadn't seen in years. Not with me. Never with me. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was heartbroken, but because I was planning. The next morning, I sent Drew to work with a kiss on the cheek and Ethan off to school with his favorite lunch. Then I made my first move. I printed a few selected photos, nothing explicit, just enough to sow suspicion. And I mailed them anonymously to Jenna's husband. Yes, she was married too. Of course she was. And while Drew thought he was in control, I was pulling strings like a seasoned puppeteer. Later that evening, Drew walked through the door with a tense jaw and a furrowed brow. "Rough day?" I asked, handing him a drink. "Yeah," he muttered. Something happened at Jenna's place. Her husband freaked out. Apparently someone sent him pictures. I feigned surprise. "Wow, that's awful. I hope she's okay." He gave me a long, uncertain look. For the first time in weeks, I saw it doubt. Maybe even fear. Good. Because if Drew thought he was playing chess, he hadn't realized he was just a pawn. And I had only just begun. The silence between Drew and me grew louder over the next few days. He wasn't asking questions, but he was watching me. I could feel his eyes follow me as I moved through the house cooking dinner, folding laundry, laughing a little too hard at my phone screen. He didn't trust me anymore. And that was exactly what I wanted. Cole and I went quiet. No new moves, just patience. Because the beauty of silence, it lets your enemy start guessing. And Drew, he started guessing. I caught him one night rummaging through my desk drawers. When I asked what he was looking for, he mumbled something about tax papers and quickly left the room. The panic was setting in. I could see it in the way he clutched his phone, the way he locked it even during short bathroom breaks. He was unraveling. Meanwhile, Jenna had gone completely off the radar. Her husband had kicked her out, from what Cole gathered. And while Drew tried to appear indifferent, he was spiraling beneath the surface. Then I made my next move. A chance run-in at Drew's office building. I walked in with Ethan's forgotten lunchbox, dressed just enough to turn heads, and made sure the receptionist and Drew's assistant saw me kiss him goodbye. They didn't know the truth, but rumors are a currency in workplaces like his. That same afternoon, I left an anonymous tip on the HR hotline forwarding, screenshots of Drew's texts to Jenna, workplace relationship, breach of policy. Within 48 hours, Drew was pulled into a closed-door meeting. He came home pale, tight-lipped, sweating. "They're looking into something at work," he said. "Some misunderstanding." "Oh no," I said, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Let me know if there's anything I can do." He blinked at me, unsure if I meant it. And that was the point. For so long, he'd lived comfortably within his lies. But now, every step he took, he questioned whether it would collapse beneath him. And I hadn't even shown him the edge yet. Drew tried to keep up appearances, but his nerves were turning him into a stranger. He started waking up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, whispering Jenna's name in his sleep. Once, I stood by the doorway and listened to him mutter something about getting caught, and should have erased it. He never realized I was there. And I never let him know I heard. At breakfast, he sat across from me, barely touching his eggs, phone clutched like a lifeline. "You're quiet today," I said, sipping my coffee. "Work's just a lot right now," he muttered. I smiled. "Maybe you need a break." "A weekend away, just the two of us?" His eyes snapped to mine. Suspicion flickered behind his fake smile. "No," he said too quickly. "Not now." Exactly as expected. Meanwhile, Cole sent over the next piece of ammunition. An old email Drew offering Jenna a promotion in exchange for keeping things private. It was dated a month before their affair even started. This wasn't just adultery anymore. It was abuse of power. Workplace manipulation. I saved it, organized it into the folder I had created, When He Breaks. Then I sent an anonymous email to Jenna's husband. He deserved the truth too. The ripple effects were delicious. Jenna's husband responded with one line, "Thank you." I knew it. That same evening, Drew came home drunk, slurring his words, stumbling into the hallway. "I know what you're doing," he hissed, pointing at me. "Doing?" I asked, all innocence. "You're trying to destroy me." I tilted my head. "Aren't you the one who already did that?" He lunged forward, angry, broken, but stopped himself at the last second. His hands clenched into fists, trembling, and I realized something. For the first time, Drew wasn't in control. He was afraid of me. Good. Because the next phase was already in motion. Drew became a ghost in our home, present in body, absent in spirit. His eyes darted around like he was always being watched. His phone, once glued to his hand, now remained locked in his drawer, as if hiding it made the truth disappear. At work, I started receiving subtle nods from people who used to ignore me. The whispers were spreading, not because I said a word, but because when you shine a light on someone's lies, the shadows do the talking. Jenna stopped coming into the office altogether. Her social media accounts vanished. And Drew, he tried damage control. He brought me flowers one morning, bright peonies, my favorite. I took them, smiled, and dropped them straight into the trash as he watched. "This doesn't fix it," I said simply. He looked wounded, as if I had betrayed him. Later that night, he brought up therapy. "I think we should talk to someone. Try to fix this." I sipped my wine. "You didn't want to fix us when you were inside her, Drew?" His face crumbled. "I made a mistake." "No," I said. "You made a series of choices. Calculated, rehearsed, and now, I'm making mine." Cole had already prepared the divorce papers, but I wasn't ready to serve them yet. There were still too many eyes watching. Too many threads I had to tighten. I began sending anonymous tips to HR about Drew's inappropriate behavior. Not false ones, just the truth he thought would stay buried. The wheels had begun to turn, and I wouldn't stop until he was stripped of everything he held dear, including me. Every move I made was quiet, deliberate. I smiled at Drew in the mornings, packed his lunch, kissed his cheek. To him, I was the forgiving wife. To everyone else, I was just Avery Callahan, playing the part of a woman trying to salvage a broken marriage. But behind the scenes, I was building a case. HR had finally launched an investigation into Drew's conduct. I'd planted just enough seeds, emails, forwarded messages, testimonies from quietly horrified colleagues. And then came the audit. Turns out Drew wasn't just unethical in his personal life. There were discrepancies in his expense reports, missing receipts, payments that couldn't be traced. Suddenly, his promotion looked less like a celebration and more like a setup. He didn't know that Cole, the same friend he thought was helping him repair our marriage, was feeding me everything. Office gossip, complaints, and more importantly, evidence. The board called him in on a Tuesday. By Thursday, he was suspended pending investigation. By Friday, Jenna had moved out of the city. I watched it all unfold with a glass of champagne in hand, never once raising my voice or shedding a tear. Drew came home that night, hollow. He didn't speak. He just sat on the couch, staring blankly, the weight of everything crashing around him. I sat beside him. "I know you hate me," he said softly. "No," I whispered. "I don't hate you. That would require effort. I'm just done with you." His shoulders shook. I think he wanted to cry, but I had no sympathy left to offer. I had one last move to make, and it would be permanent. I had always believed revenge was best served cold but calculated, not cruel, and I had one last card to play. I filed for divorce the following Monday. But it wasn't just any divorce. I had spent months documenting every lie, every infidelity, every hidden account Drew thought I'd never find. I had my own lawyer, one of the best in the state, and I had come prepared. I wasn't looking for a clean split. I was looking to dismantle him piece by piece. At the hearing, he looked like a ghost of himself. His suit hung loose. His eyes were sunken. I almost pitied him. Almost. My lawyer presented the evidence without emotion dates, texts, transactions. Every moment he thought he was in control, I had been one step ahead. The judge didn't even blink. I was granted the house, the car, and a hefty settlement that would keep me comfortable for years. His reputation? Left in the ashes. He didn't speak to me afterward. He just walked past, defeated, as if he'd finally realized what he'd lost. Or maybe he knew he never deserved it in the first place. I walked out of the courtroom with my head high, my heels clicking against the marble floor like the final notes of a long, twisted symphony. I was free, not just from the marriage, but from the version of myself that tolerated betrayal, that swallowed her voice to keep the peace, that believed love should hurt. I took a deep breath in the sunlight, felt the warmth on my skin, and smiled. This wasn't the end. This was my beginning. For the first time in years, my mornings weren't filled with anxiety. No checking Drew's moods, no forcing a smile across the breakfast table. Just silence, pure, uninterrupted silence, and the slow, comforting rhythm of healing. I moved out of the city and into a quiet coastal town where no one knew my name. where I could rebuild from the ground up. My new house wasn't as grand, but it was mine. Every picture frame, every cup in the cupboard, every thread of the couch mine. Not shared, not dictated. I painted the walls warm tones, filled the rooms with plants, and let sunlight flood every corner. It was strange how physical space could mirror emotional space. The more I opened windows, the more I opened myself. People in the town were kind, but not curious. They let me settle on my terms. I started working part-time at a bookstore, something I'd always dreamed of but was told was impractical. I spent my evenings journaling by the fireplace or walking, barefoot on the beach as the waves licked the shore like whispers of encouragement. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why. I had stayed so long with someone who erased me little by little. The answers were painful but freeing. I wasn't weak, I was hopeful. Too hopeful for someone who didn't deserve it. One afternoon, as I was rearranging books on a shelf, I caught my reflection in the shop's window. I paused. There was a softness in my eyes again. Not the naive kind, but the type that comes after surviving a storm. The woman looking back wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. A month into my quiet new life, something unexpected happened. As I checked my small mailbox outside the cottage, nestled between ferns and lavender, I saw a plain white envelope with no return address. I hesitated. It wasn't a bill, not junk mail. My name, Lauren Whitaker, was written in careful cursive, the kind that took its time. Back inside, I stared at the envelope for a few more seconds before sliding a finger beneath the seal and opening it. Inside was a single page, and with each word I read, my hands trembled. It was from Drew. He said he was in therapy now, that he had finally begun to understand the pain he'd caused. He didn't ask for forgiveness, nor did he try to make excuses. He just wrote that he hoped I had found peace, and that he would always carry the weight of what he'd done to me. There was no manipulation in his words. No plea for reunion. Just acknowledgement. I didn't know what to feel. I folded the letter and placed it back into the envelope. For hours I sat by the window, watching seagulls dive into the ocean, wondering why closure can feel as confusing as betrayal. The next morning, I took the letter down to the shore. As the waves came in, I let the paper go. The sea, indifferent but constant, took it without question. And with it, I felt something loosen inside me. I was free before, but now I was clean. Time passed, not in dramatic waves, but in gentle, quiet ripples. I found a rhythm in the stillness, a sanctuary in the ordinary. I planted a small garden behind the cottage, where basil and thyme grew alongside bright orange marigolds. Every morning I brewed my coffee and watched the mist roll off the cliffs, the ocean below whispering stories I was finally ready to hear. I started writing again just for myself, not about betrayal or pain, but about resilience, about women who rebuilt their lives from ashes and learned to dance in the rain. Each word I wrote helped me stitch together the parts of me that had frayed during those darker years. The townspeople came to know me not as the woman who fled a broken marriage, but as Lauren, the writer, the woman who hosted poetry readings in her tiny backyard and baked too many scones for Sunday markets. One afternoon, while picking up groceries at the corner store, I overheard two teenage girls talking about love like it was fire wild, romantic, consuming. I smiled, not with cynicism, but with quiet wisdom. Love is fire, I thought, but it shouldn't burn you to the ground. At night, I'd light a single candle in my bedroom and lie beneath the soft quilt. I'd sewn myself, listening to the wind rustle the olive trees outside. My heart no longer raced. My mind no longer spun in circles. I had forgiven myself. Not for falling in love with the wrong person, but for staying too long, for losing myself in someone else's storm. And with every breath I took in that sleepy coastal town, I reclaimed the woman I was always meant to be. It had been 3 years since I left everything behind. 3 years of silence, of rebuilding, of healing. But on the morning of my 38th birthday, I woke to find a letter in my mailbox. No return address. Just my name, Lauren Haynes, written in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. My hands trembled as I held the envelope. For a moment, I just stared at it, unsure if I even wanted to know. But curiosity is a powerful thing. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Lauren, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect this letter to reach you. But I needed to say it. You were right, about everything. I ruined what we had. Not just with the affair, but with every lie I told myself about what love should be. I see it now. I hope you found peace. I hope you found someone who looks at you the way I never did, like you're the whole damn sky. I'm sorry for all of it, Daniel. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't crumble. I folded the letter, walked to the fireplace, and watched as the flames devoured the past. It wasn't anger that drove me to do it. It was closure. It was the final page of a story that no longer defined me. That night, I walked down to the edge of the cliffs, barefoot in the damp grass, the wind whipping strands of hair across my face. The moon hung full and luminous above the sea, and I whispered a quiet goodbye to the woman I used to be. The woman who needed validation, who clung to broken things, who lost herself in someone else's shadow. I was not that woman anymore. I was Lauren Haynes, and I had survived, not with rage, not with revenge, but with grace. And that was the most powerful ending of all.